Welcome to another episode of our Ionavation Podcast, where we interview different entrepreneurs and get a view of their story. So here we have a very special guest, Tamara. She is generative AI content engineer at Meta. We're very grateful to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
So can you tell us a little about yourself?
Absolutely. So I'll give you the sort of like short version of it. So I like to say that I'm a native New York apple, imported Georgia peach, and a Bajan girl. So I originally from New York, grew up in Atlanta, and my family is from Barbados. Mm-hmm. My career has really been at the intersection of content and emerging media, and that's been a really interesting space to be in. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what do you see as like the biggest challenges in like balancing innovation and responsibility in media today?
I think one of the biggest challenges is determining where you're drawing the line, right? Innovation is a wonderful, wonderful thing, but it's a tool. And I think determining how to responsibly use it and how to use it in a way that makes sense for your brand and the audiences that you're serving is one of the hardest balances to strike. I think when you look at industries and you see everyone moving in a particular direction or using a particular thing, it can become very easy to think, oh my gosh, I should be doing that too. I'm not moving fast enough. I should be doing more. And that's not necessarily the case.
Mm-hmm. And so in the media space, when it comes to, I know you've worked with companies like Netflix and different things like that. How far do you think is the line for AI when it comes to movies and shows and things on that nature?
Yeah, I can't speak for platforms like Netflix and other like similar ones just because my work with them was very limited. But I do think that it's very much a case-by-case basis. And what I mean by that is from my understanding of different networks, if we're talking about like movies and television and things like that, and this is not my area of expertise, but you have a lot of different people who have say in a particular piece of IP. You have the creators, you might have the writers, depending on the franchise, you might have the actors who have a pretty heavy stake in how that IP is used, where it goes. So I think the line really just depends on the particular company, but then also the franchise or the piece of work that they are considering AI for. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I remember you talking about how you were part of New York Times, and then you just mentioned how like you had a limited time with like Netflix and them. So I was wondering like, how has their like your perspective on storytelling been affected or like evolved throughout those spaces?
Yeah. I think if anything, the current moment that we find ourselves in has just given me a deeper appreciation for original reporting, to be very honest with you. I've been reading a lot recently, but I really love opening the New York Times like app in the morning. And maybe this is because I used to work there, but I know the lengths for which reporters go to get the stories that they get all around the world. So for me, I think it's just given me a deeper appreciation and also a deeper respect for the craft of the work, if that makes sense, because it's painstaking and it takes time.
And so where do you think AI should be used? Like, I know you were talking about it a little bit earlier during your talk, the spaces that you personally think that like AI, yes, AI, I'm like, you can, scooch back a little bit.
Yeah. Well, similar to what I said earlier, I do think that that's very much a personal choice. As someone who spent a lot of my life in content, again, I really like it as an assistive tool, but not as something that's going to replace the work, right? So there are journalists whose work, anytime I see their byline, I can't wait to read it, right? Because I know that they are thoughtful, they are nuanced, they come to issues with a historical perspective, all of these different things. And I love that. So for me, I would like to continue to see that. I hope to continue to see that. And I hope that it acts as something to help enhance aspects of a work rather than replacing it writ large.
And do you think it'll ever be a point of time where AI can have that tone of voice? Do you see that happening just from your uses of it, or do you think it'll always be more of a machine type of speech?
So I think it's certainly possible, right? There's obviously a lot of different AI experiences right now that have voice, for example. They're like AI podcasts that use AIs essentially instead of people in the way that we are now. So I think it's certainly possible that there would be like a version of it, if you will, but I don't know. And I think in some ways that's sort of the beauty of it, right? What is true and real today and what can be true and real in 6 months are very different. So I try not to forecast like too much into the future, but instead think about how do I want to use this? What do I want to use it for? I gave an example during the talk. I really like the idea of using it to help deepen connection without sacrificing being present. And that's like a very tricky like thing to do. But that's one of the ways I like to use it. Yeah.
So I heard that you're coming up with like a new like play. Like,
I am, yeah.
What was the name of it, and how like has your past in storytelling and tech innovation influenced your approach to this?
Yeah, so my play is called Hynes Hill, and it's an ode to the first generation American experience and also my family in Barbados, and it centers on what happens when this family gathers over the course of a weekend. As you all know, or as you may know, family gatherings can be really interesting for better and for worse. And so that is the crux of it. I would say that the storytelling that I learned, particularly during my like tenure at the Times and as a culture editor in particular, has really informed how I think about approaching this play. I spent a lot of time at the theater, which is one of the things that really started when I was in that role as a culture editor. I would go to the theater a lot. And so I saw a lot of different ways about what it meant to construct a plot and how to think about character development and the role of the stage and the audience as part of the story. And so I've taken all of those things. And in some ways you can argue that they're innovations in their own way and brought them into the story. But I haven't necessarily, at least to this point, used like any technology tools for the storytelling itself. To my earlier point, like that's off limits for me. Yeah.
And how do you feel like your background, like you've spoken about it, with the play, how do you feel like it has shaped your background and has allowed you to have that grit to be able to go from publishing to tech, something you've never done before, and now you're jumping into the play industry? So what do you feel like your background has been able to give you that guidance and that I can do this?
I think there's a different level of hustle and energy when you come from an immigrant family. I don't know. I don't know how else to explain that. I think it's something that is just in you, and culturally, you just tend to work very hard. That is a strong value, right? To do something right, to do it well, to do it properly. So I think that has helped because I really try to apply myself in whatever it is that I'm doing. And that's not to say that I'm going to be the best at it, but I'm really going to like jump like both feet in and do my level best to figure out a thing and to do it well. So I think that innate hustle has been very helpful. And at the same time, it's also like a very warm culture, right? And the ties that bond you really matter. So as much as I know I'm going to hustle and work and try very hard, I also know that when the setbacks come and I have to pivot, I have people for whom their arms I can fall into. And I think that helps too, because anytime you're going into something new, sure, it's great, but it might be a little scary too. And you need to be able to say that out loud to someone, hopefully more than one person. And so I think it's a nice balance for me, at least, like knowing that when I get focused on something, that's it. You know, my best friend has known me since I was 17, and she can tell you that when I decide it is going to be so, it is going to be so. It might take time to get there, but once the vision is there, I'm moving, and nothing's getting in my way.
And so what would be your piece of advice for anyone who's in that type of like jumping from moving, has that grit of like wanting to move to a different industry that they've never done before. Like I know personally, I switched majors from STEM to business, something I've never touched because like I got bored. And I of course I'm going to excel in everything I touch.
I was terrible at chemistry. Kudos to you. Biology and I were friends. Chemistry, not so much.
Yeah, after 101, I was just like, okay, I feel like I'm done with the moles and all those equations. So
see, don't even remember.
So what advice do you have, especially for an entrepreneur who wants to get into a different field, a different industry than something that they like know?
I would say a few things. Think about your transferable skills. The beauty of whatever it is you're doing is that there is something that you know, something that you have learned that you can apply to something else, right? So take STEM, for example. That requires a lot of precision, right? It requires a lot of attention to detail. You can't solve equations correctly if you're not paying attention to the details, if you don't know the exceptions to the rules, so on and so forth. That applies in business too. Attention to detail is important if your books are going to be on point and if the business is going to be solvent, right? So I would say think about what your transferable skills are, would be a really, really big one. And then similar to that, figure out where the gaps are. And what is it that you need or who can help you to begin to fill those gaps so that you have both things working in tandem. The things that you already know that you can apply, but then you also can figure out, okay, what do I need to now figure out? You can sort of stack rank it priority-wise, if you will, and then you can make a plan and go from there. It's not always an easy thing, though. I think setbacks are one thing. But how you decide to pivot from the setback, I think is just as important as how you handle the setback itself. And I think that's a really important thing to remember when you are moving from one industry to another, right? There may be some initial setbacks because there's a learning curve, right? You may have to build a new network, all of these things, and that's fine. But how do you then like pivot from that setback, I think can really make or break you, to be really honest. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you for coming onto our podcast, and I'm glad that you had
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
I was your host, Toni Fullerton.
And I was your co-host, Pagan.
If you're interested in any more content like this, don't forget to like and subscribe at Hynes Institute on YouTube and follow us on Instagram.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.